So Alex, I'm hearing a lot of continued buzz about integrating AI into your writing process and your publication process. But we've got a lot of writers who, we don't want to give it all over to AI. We love writing. We want to keep the human in our process.
Right.
And that's so important. It's one of the biggest ways to build trust with your end users. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today, how to keep that human voice in your writing while properly utilizing AI for efficiency, profitability, and brand awareness.
I'm excited. Let's talk about it. Welcome back to the show, everyone. My name is Alex, and today we are joined by the talented Briana Walgenbach, our AI expert. Briana, thanks for being on the show again. We love having you here.
Yeah, of course. Love to be here.
How's everything going?
It's going good. It's going good. It's a new year, new AI every day, so lots to be excited about.
It's exciting. Lots to be excited about. And we have a lot to talk about today. Specifically, we're talking about how to use AI in the content creation process. And this is something I'm really fascinated with because I feel like people are either really afraid of AI or they're fully embracing it or they're not sure. There's question marks and not sure how to use it. So I would love to pick your brain on the best ways to leverage these new tools to create content and continue doing what we've always been doing with They Ask You Answer. So I think to kick it off, let's start with brainstorming because I feel like content always starts with an idea, right? So how can you use AI in the brainstorming process to create ideas and to start to develop like a content strategy or plan?
There's so many ways. And, initially we would say, turn to your sales team, go internal. And even with AI upon us and forever being upon us, that's still the number one recommendation I give is take it in-house first, because your best ideas come from the real humans who really interact with your real customers.
Yes.
But any writers out there or videographers listening, we know that that doesn't always yield the most ideas on a consistent basis. So we do sometimes get to a place where we're like, well, crap, I've asked all the questions I can ask. I'm not getting any ideas. What do I do? And thankfully, we have AI to assist us with that. So oftentimes what I find people typically do with their AI tool of choice is we ask it questions, right? Help me create this. What ideas could I, what content could I create around this topic? And that is all good and fine, but there is such a missed opportunity, and that opportunity is to flip that around. So with the right tool of choice, my tool of choice in this capacity would be ChatGPT. If I'm honest, from an accuracy standpoint and a usability standpoint, I find myself coming back to ChatGPT 4 each time with the utilization of some plugins. So one that I like to use and I strongly recommend everybody use is a plugin called Access Link. And it literally does just that. It literally gives ChatGPT access to whatever link you put in there, say like your homepage or a product or service page, right? And so if we use a product and service page as an example, and let's say I'm a content creator and I'm looking to brainstorm some ideas on a product or service for my organization. Could I train ChatGPT on what my business is, what that product or service is that I'm offering? And instead of saying, hey, ChatGPT or tool of choice, what content ideas could I create? Could you actually say, what questions would you need to know to qualify or disqualify yourself for this product or service? And those are the questions that your clients or your potential prospects need you to build content around. So if you're getting stuck with your sales team, turn over to ChatGPT, flip that around and have it ask you the questions. And when you see what those questions are, generally speaking, those are going to be your topic ideas, your titles to start working with right there.
That's fascinating. So if I'm picking up what you're putting down, it sounds like you want to use this plugin to give specific links to service pages or to specific queries where it'll really deep dive and get hyper specific with questions versus just going like, hey, what do you think about this? So it's really trying to like ask those more pointed questions and giving it as much information to really try to get pointed answers and get more pointed with the conversations, the topics, the titles, and where it's going.
Yep, exactly. And truthfully, the more info you can give your tool of choice to fully be trained up on your full organization, your brand, your product, your service that you're looking to really talk about, the better equipped that bot is going to be to ask you certain questions that are more on point with your brand. And with the new SGE, Google Search Experience, coming out, really sticking true to your brand and sticking really strongly to those client real questions, like what do they really need to qualify or disqualify themselves, that's what's going to give you a better chance of actually showing up in the AI response in SGE that will eventually be available for all of us. Fingers crossed that eventually long from now.
Yeah, no, that's going to be the new search. That's where it's going. So to be able to start to prep and get ahead of that curve, but rather than being reactive to it later on in the game, seems like a really smart choice for businesses. I also love that it's rooted still in the ask you answer, because ultimately you want to answer those pointed questions that help your customers and meet people where they are so that you can give them the content they need to make better buying decisions. So I love all that.
Exactly.
Now, now I'm thinking about search. We're talking about brainstorming, getting ideas out. Now, from a search perspective, I'm thinking like SEO, and we're talking about Google a little bit. So this is a good segue into like, how does this play into SEO, and what would you use AI for when we're talking about search specifically?
Yeah, that's such a big loaded question.
I know.
I feel like every day, I know it's super loaded. Every day I go online, I feel like I keep hearing or seeing SEO is dead, SEO is dead. Enough of dead SEO. Like, it's still here. It's just going to start to look different, right? And if our customers' behavior is shifting, we need to shift along with it. And if search is shifting, we need to be prepared to shift along with it. So when we talk about, how do I know that my website, my content, my insert anything here, is fully optimized for a search engine? There are a lot of tools we can use. One that I personally really like from an accuracy standpoint is Surfer SEO. I find that to be very applicable with real action items for you that aren't just generic SEO best practices like, have you used keywords in your copy? Have you made sure that it has strong readability? Those sound good and they're good practices, but what does that actually mean, right? If I'm the reader and I get that feedback, do I know physically what to go do and change to my blog?
Right.
Maybe, but kind of a weak maybe, right? Can I put this into a tool and get actionable insights that I can take and really apply right away into my writing or my webpage, whatever it is that I'm working on? I find that to be more intentional and from the writer's seat, like I actually have some tangible things to do. But I will say, not to make this all about ChatGPT, but we've got custom GPTs now, and they're pretty awesome. If I'm being honest, they're pretty dang awesome.
They're amazing.
So they're nice because you can feed it, just like we were talking about, you can feed it exactly what you're looking for in terms of your tone, your brand voice, anything that is the way that you want your content to look, feel, sound. You can bake that into a custom GPT. So you're not getting those generic responses of, have you done XYZ best practices? We can get it to be really specific because you built it and you get to essentially control what types of outputs it's going to give you. So if you can say, hey, when I am fully optimizing a blog, here's what must be true. And so based on this blog that I just created, I'm going to give you this copy. Tell me how I did, right? Does this match our content style guide? Does this represent our brand in a strong, compelling way that we want it to? And if not just pointing out, hey, this doesn't represent your brand in a good way, but tell me specifically, how can I make this, represent our brand in a more compelling way? Give me some real action items that I can take and carry out. The custom GPTs are just so good. We don't want to sleep on those.
Yeah, I hear you loud and clear. And I also love action items. That's critical for any team, any business. If you don't have clear takeaways, clear next steps that you can go and work the plan, you're just getting lost in the ether and nothing really is ever going to fully get done. And that's a problem. So I love that there's clear actionable steps and you can leverage this tool to your advantage in that way. It's also got me thinking about like when you do interviews. So for content people and for video people like myself and Austin over here in the studio, and I know for John too, who writes a lot of content, it all starts with an interview. Like if you don't know something or you don't know a subject, you talk to a subject matter expert. You try to gain an understanding before you start writing. So from that perspective, how can you use AI to help in your content creation and like capturing those interviews and maybe taking a transcript and turning it into something where you have clear actionable steps?
Yeah, there's a lot of different tools. So many. I'm sure I've not been, playing around with all of them. Too many to get my paws on.
Yeah.
But the two that I've found to be the strongest contenders, if you will, amongst our current clients are Otter AI and Firefly's AI.
Mm-hmm.
And if you pull up their pricing pages, there's a pretty big discrepancy. And so depending on what your budget is, it may sway you one way or the other. But the nicest thing that I find with both of them is truly the accuracy. I've played around with a lot of transcription tools, and it is really annoying, for lack of better terminology there. If you have any niche word or name that is consistently used, most often it just butchers it and it messes up so much stuff that as the writer, it isn't actually like a super useful transcription to use. However, if I use Fireflies as an example, I find that one to be just as effective as Otter, but a little more budget friendly. You can get a full transcription of your interview. Now, can you also record your interview, right? Could you be on Zoom or Teams or whatever your meeting tool choice is?
Mm-hmm.
Could you, yes, video that, right? Record it, but then get that full transcription so that you have the video and the written side of it, because we have long lived in a world where written content creators were in their own silo and video content creators were in their own silo.
Facts.
And we're really seeing that start to, and right? Mm-hmm. Super big facts.
Yeah.
So we're starting to see that together. And this is our opportunity to figure out what does success look like for me if I am having these bleed together. So can we use a tool like Fireflies, right, to say I've got a video version of this and I can maybe chop some of that up to use in short form video, or, to embed within the article that I'm going to write to even, give that even more value and make it more comprehensive for our end users, our readers, right? And with that transcription, if you have that written out, what can you do with that so that you don't feel like you're starting from scratch when you get to drafting, right? Can you use tools like Gloss AI and say, I've got this recording and this transcription. Can I plug this in? And can you pull out a blog for me? Could you actually pull out some clips that do have strong standalone context that I could use those short clips, to spread out on socials or to use, right, for YouTube Shorts? There's so many opportunities in terms of cutting up material to multiply it and use it in multiple ways, that if any content creator is writing this and you haven't played or started playing around with some of those tools, Opus, Video, Gloss AI, like that is the one thing you need to run and go do and see really how could I be maximizing and multiplying my efforts from just one content interview, just like we'll do with this one.
Yeah, absolutely. We're definitely leveraging it to the full effect that we can. And there's a learning curve to it. So like any learning curve, I think you've been listing off a lot of really great apps, and there's a lot of tools and different things, and it is very overwhelming. But I think the one thing that's true with what you're saying is you got to start somewhere. Most of these apps have free trials, have trial periods where you can test them out. Go test. Go start experimenting. Go seeing how you can apply it and use it day to day, because it's not going to hurt anybody. And worst case, it doesn't work. Best case, you can sign up for a subscription if it makes sense for your business or for your purposes. So I love what I'm hearing. Let's talk a little bit too. We created the content. We're breaking it up. We have all these tools to distribute it and put it on different platforms and social and all that. And that's great. How can we use AI for fine tuning, for like editing and finding that brand voice, and for readability and for accessibility and all those pieces? Are there tools out there that help with that? I'm sure
there are, and I feel like I'm probably going to come back to ChatGPT here on this one. But again, from an accuracy standpoint, in terms of having physical, here's what I think, here's some actions to take. Mm-hmm. I have not found a tool yet that gives me what I want more than a custom GPT. So I'll use ourselves as an example. Something that we did here internally is we all took audits of our own roles and tried to figure out, what can we automate? Where can we use AI to enhance what we already have, going, but also to cut down on some time so we can get that time back to do other intentional activities and tasks. And what we found as content trainers, video and written content, is we review a lot of content. And for anybody who reviews content, it is not a short amount of time that you take to do that. So can we start to speed that up in any way? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So what we have done, one of our amazing trainers, Miss Mandy York, built a custom GPT that is a they ask you answer reviewer. And so when we built that, we fed it everything that we felt it needed to know. So we trained it first so that it's really got everything that encompasses best practices that they ask you answer, but also any type of article, talking Big Five, right? Any type of video, we can say, what type of Selling 7 video would this be, right? So I would say from an editing perspective, could you build a custom GPT that actually adheres to what you consider optimize, or what needs to be true for you to say, this is a good blog, I'm ready to press publish? And can you weave that into your publication process that no blog gets published unless it's gone through your custom GPT reviewer? And not just gone through it, but gone through it, and then the human actually takes the actions that we're seeing as outputs, so that we're speeding up this editing process. And it's not, okay, let me sit down, let me be that line by line editor. Mm-hmm. You're really getting the big pictures, and then still doing a full read through, of course, before we press publish, but doing a little bit of both and not removing the human, but using a little bit more of AI than you maybe are right now.
Yeah, no, I love what you're saying. And we actually talked with Mandy recently about the custom GPTs that you guys have been working on, and it's fascinating. So if you want to check that episode out, you should definitely go take a look at Mandy's episode. But you made a really good point towards the end there, where the GPT functionality that you created, your own custom GPT, it helps take some of the tedious work out. That's just like the time consuming piece, but it helps you get faster in the sense that you still get the quality of the review, but there's also still a human piece where like it doesn't take you completely out of it. It's a tool to help you get faster and better, but you still need that human piece. You still need to review and provide the ultimate feedback. It just helps you get things done a lot quicker and more efficiently, which is amazing. And a good segue into how does that play into staying organized and like project management? So from a project management perspective for the team and for individuals, how does AI play into it? And we're already talking about it a little bit, but can you talk more about how it just saves time and really creates efficiencies for everybody?
Yeah, I would say really always it depends when it comes to content creation, right? Sure. But depending on what your, daily workload looks like, weekly workload looks like, there may be some tasks or responsibilities within your role that can lead you to a point of overwhelm quite quickly, mm-hmm. right? And maybe it is that, as you go throughout your workday, you get so many emails that come through that at the end of the day, you feel like you have more work than you started the day with. And I've heard a lot of people in many industries have that as a pretty common day-to-day scenario.
Hi, me too.
And it doesn't sound, yeah, it's right.
It's me. I'm the problem.
Yeah. Okay, Taylor. Yeah. So knowing that this is such a big issue, why wouldn't you lean on one of the many project management tools in AI out there? Two big ones that I hear most commonly that people utilize: Notion, I'm sure just about everyone's heard of that one, mm-hmm. And Reclaim. I personally like Reclaim mainly because I feel like I have someone who's like watching my calendar, and it takes the stress off of me to not feel like I have to keep checking my calendar to see, like, did someone put something on my calendar? Did they book over something? Because, right. If you've got a busy job, got a busy role, you got a lot of things throughout your day. And Alex, let's say you and I had a standing meeting every Wednesday that was critical for us to have that really intentional conversation. But Marcus went ahead and booked over that. Well, I'm going to be pretty excited that Marcus Sheridan put time on my calendar, but that puts me in a pickle because you and I are supposed to have an intentional conversation at that time.
Totally.
Which then requires me to figure out what other time is going to work for you. I'm going to have to reach out to you. I'm going to have to send you some times. It becomes a bigger to do than it needs to be. Mm-hmm. Instead, can I go into my Reclaim account and mark our meeting as priority so I can sync my own calendar as well as yours and say, hey, if someone books over this, ensure that the week doesn't go by that I haven't had that intentional call or conversation with Alex. And it does it just like clockwork, which honestly makes me feel really fancy for having like a calendar assistant. But it works like a charm, and it just takes so much less. It's less stress at the end of the day, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it's like having your own personal.
The note.
It's like having your own personal EA, but it's like an AI EA. They handle your schedule for you, so you don't have to. Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah, AI EA. Yes. Yeah. Notion, I personally don't heavily use, but I know a lot of impactors use it just from a purely planning standpoint. Especially if we're planning for different client calls or planning for internal meetings. You know, we have all these ideas up in our head, but it is very different, or they may look different once we get them down on paper. And that's not always ideal, right? So if we've got all these ideas, can we share those ideas with, say, Notion or your AI tool of choice? Really could be any tool, and say, hey, I've got all these ideas. Let me list these out in bullet points. Can you summarize these in a way that makes a little more sense? Or, you know, I have all these ideas for this meeting, and I know I want everyone walking away knowing these 3 things, or being able to take action on this one thing. What needs to be true about the meeting, or what milestones do I need to, make sure I hit in this meeting to ensure that that's actually true? And I'm not going to lie, the first time I tried that out, I was like, this is going to suck. There's no way this is going to like sound like me and actually, break this up in the way that I would conduct a meeting.
Right.
And I was very surprised. I was super surprised.
It's kind of scary, isn't it? It's kind of scary how much it can pick up. The more you interact with it, how much it can pick up your voice, your tonality, your personality. It's cool and scary all at the same time.
Yes, it's cool and very, very scary all at the same time. That's a good way to say that. Yes. Yeah. I've noticed it's even picked up on like my little like humor inserts without me even saying it, which is so creepy, but also so awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah, less work for you, right? So we've covered a lot of ground. We talked about brainstorming. We talked about keyword and SEO research. We talked about project management, editing. I think the last piece, the final frontier is once we have all this content created, we figured out how to really be smart about our project management and our time and leveraging these tools. What's the best way to distribute this content? So now we have everything set up for success. How do we push this stuff out to get in front of more of our best customers and get the reach and the engagement that we're ideally looking for as a business?
This is where I can't preach loud enough to say you gotta have a CRM in place that also is ahead of the curve when it comes to AI. So obviously I gotta do a plug for HubSpot here. They are on their AI game. And if I am, say, a writer, in the same session that I'm ready to publish a blog, can I also then take that and schedule out my social postings right within that same system and utilize their writing assistant to help you figure out, what do I actually want to write about this post, right? I've got this blog. I'm not obviously gonna copy and paste a blog as a social post. That would be excessive. But how can I summarize this blog into a digestible and attractive set of copy that I can use for my actual posting? A lot of us will say, there are so many tools, and I want to use a tool for that. I want to use a tool for that. I got a tool over here for that. At the end of the day, you can have so many tabs open, but if you can find a CRM and a system that has all of this in one spot, number one, less tabs open, less confusing. But number two, more easy for you to implement a system and a process that you can consistently use week after week with all of your publishing. So in terms of the actual scheduling, find a system that has both in it. But if you don't have that, or you are limited in your capabilities in your organization, because some of us are, right? We hear these ideas, they sound good, we bring them back to our organization, and we get the big no. So then what should we do? Find an AI tool of choice that you can train to have your brand voice and use it to help you figure out what you want to actually push out on socials. We have, I'm sure everyone's heard of the company called Jasper. Something that I like about their system is their Jasper Everywhere Chrome extension. Mm-hmm. So if you have that extension, you can literally pull up, I'll use LinkedIn, pull up LinkedIn, and let's say I'm going to generate a post. That little Jasper icon will be there right by the cursor. And you can just ask the action. It'll create it right away, right within that system for you. So again, similar to having a CRM with everything in it, it's nice that Jasper Chrome extension goes that's why it's called Jasper Everywhere, but it goes everywhere with you. So you're not having to open a tab, copy, paste, drop this here, go to your social platform of choice, and Jasper's going to tag right along with you.
That makes total sense. Yeah. Wow. I'm like still digesting. I'm processing. I feel like we talked a lot. We've covered a lot of ground, a lot of tools. For the viewers and for the listeners out there, how can they get in touch with you, or what's the best way to reach you if they have questions? Because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions. You're our AI expert. So just let people know where they can get in touch with you, because I think it'd be really good for them to start the conversation.
Well, obviously LinkedIn. We're all on LinkedIn today, right? But you also can go to our Impact Plus homepage and request to talk to a coach. We do have our AI mastery section where you'll see my face plastered all over it. And if you request to talk to a coach, you're going to be linked in with me through our wonderful CRM, of course.
Thanks, Briana. We love having you on the show. You are welcome anytime. And for all of our viewers and listeners out there, thank you so much for joining, and stay tuned for the next episode.